Hey, welcome back to Cheating Wife, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to the channel for cheating stories like this.
Found out my boyfriend is actually married with 2 kids. A year ago, I met a man in the Navy who was an amazing darling. He treated me better than anybody else had, bringing me flowers and all that nice junk everyone loves. I went to see him over the weekend, and we had a great time. Today, 2 days later, I received this lovely message request on Facebook. Hello, I believe you and I have someone in common, and this person has probably told you a story about how I'm a crazy ex out for vengeance or giving you some sort of warning not to communicate with me because. This is not the first time I've said this. That's why I'm approaching you in this manner, to prevent you being swayed by my profile and ignoring me. I'm not insane. I'm simply enthusiastic about not being duped, fooled, or cheated on. To my astonishment, I discovered your contacts with name here on Facebook after he said that he had canceled his account. I also saw your messages and photos from this weekend and felt you should know that he and I are not only in a relationship, but we also live together and are married. I contacted him right away, and he instructed me to text him. I asked him who the girl was, and he said not to answer, and that he'd call me when he got home from work. I'm fully aware that he'll attempt to turn it into precisely what she said, that she's insane and I should ignore her. I trust everything she said. Of course, I responded, and we've been exchanging experiences, and she's corroborated a number of things I was skeptical about. I'm simply not sure how to deal with it / feel it / deal with it. I'm feeling terrible and like. I should have seen the warning flags, but I didn't since I loved him so much. Obviously, I'll be breaking contact. Have any of you ever discovered that your S/O was truly married? How did you handle it? Update. I've been in touch with the wife all day, telling her everything and exchanging tales and information. He did call, and he attempted to blame it on me, claiming his marriage was none of my concern, to which I replied, go acquire an STD and have a lovely life. He called me an hour or 2 later to apologize, and I told him to off. I'm done with him, there was never any doubt about it, but I'm still really unhappy law. Story 2. Depressed wife cheated, now suddenly wants divorce. Help me talk / cope with her. I've been married to my wife for a little more than a year, and we've been together for almost 13 years. We have 2 children, ages 2 and 6, and we have a problem. My wife has always seemed to be a joyful lady, the life of the party, and a social beast, but she has changed in the last several years. Her first pregnancy was really difficult for her, and she acquired a trauma while giving birth to our eldest daughter. When our daughter was 8 months old, I saw something was amiss with the lady I loved. When she interacted with her infant and fed it, it simply didn't appear natural or real. She said 2 months later that she had strong feelings the kid wasn't hers. Our little child was swapped at birth. Another thing she said was that she was getting horrific visions of our young child. How she went down the stairs was due to someone entering the room and stabbing her. She was never the one committing it, but she was haunted by these pictures all day. She was eventually diagnosed with postnatal depression and began counseling. That she immediately ended with a "I can manage this" attitude 3 months later. I trusted her, but she gradually changed over the years. She began to say things like, if I had known it would be like this, I would never have chosen to have a kid. I love her with all my heart, but if I could, I would reset time. Or, I'd never do it because I'm not courageous enough, yet I have a strong desire to jump from a tall building and end it all. She went back to treatment and gradually regained her positive flow, or so I thought. During these occasions, I discovered that whenever I expressed how much she hurt me with her negative views, she stopped talking to me about them. So I began to suppress my grief and just listen to her, telling her that we could work things out. Rationally, I could rationalize her words and actions, but emotionally, something evil began to grow inside me. She wouldn't have spoken such things if me and our little child were good enough for her. I know it was a gradual process, but it tore me up on the inside. So I began withdrawing, gradually, over time. We had a second daughter, and this time she felt it. For about 3 or 4 months, then the embarrassment set in that she hadn't felt this way with our eldest daughter, and she began having terrible thoughts again in private. It came out that her suicidal ideas had shifted from unwanted to pleasant. It was the last thing she considered before going to bed and the first thing that came to her when she awoke. But for the rest of the world, she was still the "I can do anything and everyone loves me" power girl I fell in love with. But at home, she became exhausted and retreated, just as I did, since we had lengthy periods of no intimacy. sometimes 2 or 3 months every year. I wasn't permitted to touch her, and the only thing I could do was cuddle. This exacerbated my concerns since, in addition to feeling not good enough, I felt undesired and rejected. Throughout this period, we kept going, both saying, "We will get through this. These are the hardest years." With 2 tiny daughters, we married in the end of 2016, and it turns out that her emotions were deeper than ever at that time. Prior to our marriage, she met a guy, a tattoo artist 15 years her senior, who was working on her tattoo, something to remember her sad era and her fortitude, and was married himself. They began an affair 2 weeks after our wedding and met in secret until I caught her in January. I discovered that she had been in touch with 3 other guys. While sifting through her falsehoods, she didn't want to give me the complete truth. I had with 2 of them, but only the final one had long and meaningful chats with me. She revealed to me a few weeks later that she had been suicidal and that her meetings with that guy felt like she could escape reality and live in a bubble for a few hours. Nobody except me was aware of her dark thoughts, and she had kept her worst desires secret even from me. We fought a lot, but she always said she didn't want to lose me and that she loved me, that she made a mistake, that she was frightened of being damaged beyond repair. She had been visiting a therapist because she was burnt out, but she had only given her 10% of the truth. When I asked that she tell the therapist everything, she was informed that the situation was too difficult for her kind of treatment. At the time, the diagnosis was postpartum depression that deteriorated into PTSD. She began working at another clinic a few weeks ago, and they soon claimed that the verdict was incorrect. PTSD did not apply since she had no trauma and her thoughts were agreeable and not invasive. When she was looking for methods to kill herself on the internet or picking what music to play at her funeral, she felt at peace. The diagnosis is now systemic depression, and she will begin therapy shortly. But now comes the difficult part. We'd been trying for 1.5 months to move over the fact that she'd had an affair, and I was gradually giving it a place that didn't bring anguish all the time. The betrayal was particularly devastating since she was usually the one who crucified those who did this, and who had begun accusing me of having an affair the previous year. I gradually came to the point where I could handle it, but 2 weeks ago I confronted her with the fact that she had only exhibited regret twice, that I thought I was battling harder for this than she was. It seemed as though I was the one who had cheated and was suffering, while she was furious and protective all the time. She told me she had a feeling and that she would try. But 30 minutes later, she called me upstairs and said it was all over, that she loved me and the kids, but that her affections were dead. Her faith was vanished. I know the stress of being caught, of hearing that you have systemic sadness, is pushing her to hide her feelings, to go on the offense rather than confessing what she did. But it seems that she is making a choice when in her lowest state, as far away from her actual sentiments as possible. She has consented to attend a couples therapy, and our first session is tomorrow, but I truly need advice on how to deal with her despair. And she's previously indicated that she wishes it would work out with all her heart, but she now has no trust that it would help. She's dead within. I'm the kind of person who overthinks everything. I read up on infidelity, the reasons why, and the best methods to deal with it. And I attempted to incorporate her in it, much to her chagrin. She seems to be pushed rather than helped, which I believe may be my undoing. I attempt to assist her in order to avoid confronting her with the things she did, or her bad emotions. But it almost seems as though I'm being too kind with her. I tell her that I acknowledge that I've made errors, that I bear a large portion of the guilt, and that I'm trying to show her that I'm not the person I became as a result of her sadness. I drastically altered my lifestyle, including the things I do and the I don't care mentality that gradually grew on me. However, this seemed to aggravate her rage even more. When she talks to other people, she wants the entire world to know what she did. To crucify herself, she always says there are 2 sides to the story. It's no justification, but I felt so alone, she adds. As a result, I forgot that I was just as alone in the relationship as she was. And when I tell other people about what occurred, I tend to concentrate on my own errors. It's not hers. It's as if she's blaming me for what she's done, for who she's become. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys being on the receiving end of a stick. But I've discovered in recent weeks that if I confront her or exhibit too much anger, she withdraws and pushes me away or becomes upset. I know she has feelings. When we're separated, she's sobbing, going on long walks, and is psychologically unstable. She is angry at herself for what she did to me and our children, for the anguish she has brought us, and despises who she has become. So, how can I deal with her sadness and infidelity? Show her that I love her, that I care, without being a burden or giving her the impression that I'm pressing her. We've been living apart for the last 2 weeks, and she continues assuring me that she loves me, but the spark has faded. But she wants it back. But she can't be near me till it does. How do I deal with her abrasiveness and defensiveness without losing myself? How can I show her that I'm not the guy I've become? How can I convince her that the load of I'm not good enough, or my wife wouldn't have chosen death, was steadily disintegrating me? Is it her despair that's leading her to disconnect, or is she really over us? And if she is, where did the revitalization of our love life come from during the last 5 weeks? Is it her fear that I would seek retribution? That I will never be able to live with what she did that is forcing her to hide her feelings, that she is doing to protect herself? Or am I merely a continual reminder of her blunder, of her betrayal? I'm not a victim. Most women see me as powerful and beautiful, and I've never had trouble finding a partner or a relationship. If she continues on this route, I know I will be able to withstand anything is thrown at me and start a happy life. It's simply that I want to do all I can to get through this without seeming too lenient or weak in her eyes. And it would be very ironic if I had learned so much about myself and her in the last few months just to use that information in another relationship. I want to spend the rest of my life with her as my partner and the mother of my children, not as someone who lives in another city and will be a regret/mistake for the rest of their life. Update. We had our first couples therapy session a few hours ago, and it was eye-opening. Yes, she is sad and has serious problems, but it does not justify her conduct. She informed the 2 therapists and me straight out that she lied to me about having with me over the last several weeks. She frequently said that she would never be intimate against her choice, but at that session, she stated that she felt compelled to do so due to her error. Hearing that she lied about something as basic as this, despite the fact that I questioned her and never coerced her, enraged me much. Yes, she is ashamed, but not guilty. It's all about her personal agony and suffering, and how everyone who knows about it criticizes her. The other parents at school, hers, mine, and our pals. Her humiliation causes her melancholy, which causes her to get enraged. She's merely reciting her own justification for having an affair, a tale she's been telling herself for over a year, and, more often than not, in a rage. And this should, and will come to an end. The therapist asked her multiple times throughout the session about why she was so upset, about why her pain and sorrow. Concentrated on the, literally, minor things that were wrong in our marriage, rather than the things she did wrong in the same marriage. I'll wait until the next session before addressing her about her rage and complete lack of respect for me and our children, since I believe that such issues are better handled with a therapist in the room rather than one-on-one. If I confront her, she will merely dig herself in and shut the doors. If there is a neutral person there, she will not have that opportunity. Yes, I still believe there's a possibility we can preserve this, and that's what I want. But there must be mutual respect on both sides. I'm not one to start a quarrel with my children's mother, the lady I still adore. But she must realize that if she walks, that's it. She doesn't get to determine whether or not we stay friends, and she doesn't get to decide whether or not, and how, I heal myself. She will lose me if she walks out of this. I'll keep it cordial for the sake of the kids, take care of the money, and kick her out of my life. There will be no relationship between us, and I will devote all of my focus to rebuilding my life and being there for the children. She doesn't get to choose whether or not she will have a role in it. I believe so.